Okay, how we doing? Tuesday, August 30th, 2016. Moving along with our NFL preview, doing the divisions. Today we are looking at the AFC East. And once again, I have the New England Patriots winning the AFC East again this season. I have them going 10-6. I think they're going to struggle a bit because of the Tom Brady suspension that's going to prevent them from getting the wins we normally see this team stack up. What we have to note with the AFC East this year is they are playing both the NFC West and the AFC North, so you have some serious competition in the tough schedule. Teams like Arizona and Seattle from the NFC West, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and what I think will be a bounce-back Baltimore Ravens team coming into this year. So those are some pretty significant teams that they're going to be playing against. Every team in the division will play them. New England, you look at the first 4 games without Tom Brady. They have the Cardinals, Dolphins, Texans, and Bills. Not the most daunting schedule. You do have Arizona on there, but certainly going to be able to let them struggle a bit. There is a potential to struggle. It's going to mean Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to play well. And the schedule is pretty consistently tough throughout the year. Towards the end, it tapers off a bit because you have the Broncos, the Jets, and the Dolphins, and I'm not expecting much from the Broncos this season. But you got to look at that. That's why I think a few of the wins will not be there as they normally are with the New England Patriots. You usually expect them right around 12 wins. I have them going 10-6. You do have the return of Dion Lewis. I think that's going to be a very key factor for them. A 5'8" guy, in the mold of a Darren Sproles, Danny Woodhead, Lance Dunbar for the Cowboys. He's going to be instrumental in that short passing game that they love with Julian Edelman. And, of course, Danny Amendola. They also love their tight ends, adding Martellus Bennett. Let's see if he's going to be all there this season. It's just been a matter of consistency with him. On the defensive side of things, they do have Chris Long, but as we've discussed, Chris Long, I believe, is starting to trend downward. It's not a horrible trend, but he's certainly moving in that direction. Jabal Sheard, a guy I think is very underrated on the defensive line at defensive tackle, and Alan Branch should provide some good cover for Dante Hightower, who has been very impressive since coming into the league. Their secondary relies on Malcolm Butler. With the Patriots' defense, though, it's really all about the system, not necessarily the players. They do have quality players, don't get me wrong, but that system has always been very good. Again, I just see them dipping down in the win department with 10 wins because of the Brady suspension. This thing is going to end eventually. No matter what anyone likes to think. I'm not a Patriots hater, but eventually it's going to end. It's just not going to end this season. And one of the reasons why is because none of the teams in their division have really shown any propensity to win the big games necessary to take that division crown from the Patriots. So Patriots 10-6 this season. The team I have in second place is the Buffalo Bills. The thing with Buffalo, very, very difficult schedule. You look at the first half, they have the Ravens, who I believe will be improved, and have their bounce back year. I shouldn't say improved. We'll get into them when we do the AFC North. Jets, Cardinals, and Patriots. That'll be the last game Tom Brady misses because of his suspension. You have a little reprieve in there with the Rams, 49ers, and Dolphins. However, after that, their final 9 games, Patriots, at Seahawks, at Bengals, Jaguars, who aren't the greatest team but are certainly improved, at the Raiders, who I believe will win that division, versus the Steelers. Then you end up all right with the Browns, Dolphins, and Jets, but you have a real 6-game stretch in there between 7 and 13 that's going to really test this team. Had they not had that stretch, I would expect that they may be able to challenge for this division, but this is a team that has never shown the ability to win the games they absolutely have to win. Tyrod Taylor, a guy I was very high on last year, I believe he will continue to improve. LaShawn McCoy still only 28, but he has been in the league 8 years. They did add Reggie Bush, a guy who hasn't taken many hits for a 31-year-old, but still 31, you gotta wonder. Mike Gillislee, another guy at running back who I think is underrated. Of course, Sammy Watkins is spectacular. Injuries you worry about with him, and they don't really have anyone to complement him on the other side. Offensive line, they do have Eric Wood, who is one of the better ones. Richie Incognito can certainly play, so it's solid. Nothing great, though. The injury to Shaq Lawson, I believe, is really going to affect this team. Jerry Hughes did not live up to expectations last year. They did lose Mario. Not Mario Edwards. What am I saying? They lost Mario Williams going into last season, so that's a difficult loss for them. Their secondary, very good with their corners. Stephon Gilmore, I think, is in the upper echelon of cornerbacks in the league. Ronald Darby. And we've seen that that's what Rex Ryan likes to do, rely on his secondary with guys like Darrelle Revis and Antonio Cromartie that allows him to blitz and get pressure in that regard. So they're going to have to be strong because without Shaq Lawson, Buffalo is going to have to be able to defend on the back end. Still, though, I don't think the Buffalo Bills are going to get the wins that they need. This could be their year, though, if they can finally figure out a way to do that, to be able to win games that they normally have lost, the big ones late in the year, and that daunting schedule is going to prevent them from what I think making the playoffs, though they will have a winning record. So Buffalo Bills 9-7. Next up, the New York Jets at 7-9. They did bring Ryan Fitzpatrick in. They got him in for training camp, and I believe that is going to really help them as far as what their offense is going to be able to do. And there's not going to be any rust, anything like that. However, I think that the loss of Chris Ivory is one of the bigger departures for a team this season, going into this season. So a guy who was lost in last offseason. Matt Forte at 30 is not going to be able to carry it all on his own. Bilal Powell, they're going to expect a lot from him. Brandon Marshall, of course, is spectacular. Him and Ryan Fitzpatrick have really connected very well. They're on the same page. Offensive line, they lost to Brickashaw Ferguson. He announced his retirement. That's going to really affect them. Nick Mangold's still very good, but that loss of Brickashaw Ferguson is really going to hurt. Defensively, secondary, of course, strong with Darrelle Revis. Even at his age at 31, I don't expect much of a drop-off for him. Their linebackers are also very good as well. David Harris, the addition of Bruce Carter, so solid in that regard. And, of course, the front seven all the way around is very good. Muhammad Wilkerson, all those guys. Sheldon Richardson has got to get it together, though, and really help that team out. But the thing with the Jets, they are playing a first-place schedule this year. I don't think they'll sneak up on anyone. And I really think that loss of Chris Ivory is going to affect this team more than they would expect. So that's why I have the Jets at 7-9. And then the last place team, 5-11, the Miami Dolphins. Of course, they're the only ones left. With the Dolphins, Ryan Tannehill, a guy, some people, giving this guy a pass for whatever reason. He just really has not developed into anything, that you would expect for a guy who was, a top 10 pick, and I think it was only a top 10 pick because he was a stretch for them. Their schedule starts off pretty hard at Seattle, at the Patriots, of course, without Tom Brady, the Browns, and then at the Bengals. They finish with going to New York, the Bills, and the Patriots, 3 division games to finish. I really just don't see it. There are too many holes on this roster. Their receiving core, not great. No longer have Mike Wallace, of course. Jarvis Landry is pretty good. Don't get me wrong. Their running back situation, bringing in Arian Foster, I think he's still got something to give a team. But, even with his age, Jay Ajayi, I was expecting more out of. It's just not there all the way around. Offensive line, not great. Jawan James, a guy they drafted last season, I don't think has turned out. Brandon Albert, a veteran they brought in, has not really lived up to what they have needed from a guy. Their secondary, also really nothing there. Byron Maxwell, they brought him in, but we saw last year he went in to Philadelphia with all that money and didn't do much. Jelani Jenkins at linebacker, all right. And Ndamukong Suh, he's been good, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't really lived up to that contract yet. Of course, it's very difficult for a guy to live up to such a hefty contract, and they brought in Mario Williams, so we'll have to see what he can bring to the table in that regard. But all the way around, you just look at some of these other guys, Kowamisi, Spencer Pasinger at linebacker, Chris Culliver at cornerback, all right. The receiving core outside of Jarvis Landry, it's just very pedestrian. Offensive line, very patchwork. I just don't see it with this Miami Dolphins team, as far as the holes that they have in Ryan Tannehill. I don't think is a guy who's going to step up and, make himself the elite quarterback people would want him to be. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. So there's your AFC East preview. The Patriots, again, winning the division, 10-6. Of course, they got to navigate that Tom Brady suspension for the first 4 weeks. The Buffalo Bills at 9-7. Shaq Lawson, very big injury for them. Will they be able to win the big games that they have not been able to win in the past? New York Jets 7-9. Chris Ivory, big departure, and I think that a tougher schedule, and they're not going to sneak up on anyone, is going to bring them back to the pack. And of course, the Miami Dolphins, just way too many holes all over the roster. They have good players at some spots, but the holes are just too much and way too many, and not few and far between. Unfortunately, in this case, that's where you want it to be positive. So I have them at last at 5-11. All right, so that is it for your AFC East preview. Tomorrow we will be moving into the NFC South, so we will keep them coming to you. Be sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you very much, and we will catch you tomorrow.